No, sir, I don't like it.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to No Sir Pod, the podcast where we talk about shit we don't like with people we absolutely adore. Today's no exception. I'm joined with my friend Myq Kaplan.
Thank you so much for having me. Do you ever say today is an exception where we're talking with a person we don't like about things that we don't like? Hey, whoa.
I think I've done an exception where it's a person that I just met. I think I've said something like that.
Perfect. Yeah. When I do my podcast, I will, usually it's people that I know, comedians and such, and I'll say, thanks for being my guest and my friend. And if it's somebody that I'm just meeting for the first time, I'll say thanks for being my guest and new friend.
There you go.
I'm optimistic.
Yeah, it is. I like that hopefulness.
So I'm a little afraid about this podcast. I'm maybe a little too glass half full for this gay.
No, I think in order to be glass half full, you have to know what things are bad as well.
Yeah,
that's kind of where I think optimism gets a lot of. I don't like that people don't like optimism.
Oh yeah, there's toxic positivity that people can veer in the direction of, but don't worry, mine it's not to that level. I just have the FDA always has the amount of rat shit that can be in things, So don't worry, everyone. My positivity levels are well within non-toxic range. That's my goal.
Nice. Well, yeah, you want to keep it non-toxic either way, right?
Yes.
Fit for human consumption.
Yeah. They say holding a grudge is like taking poison and hoping the other person dies. And so I don't want to take that much poison, That's all.
No, but I like a drugs amount of poison. Just enough.
A drugs amount of poison. And sometimes a little bit of poison, like for a vaccine, the old school vaccines. It's like you put a little bit of the disease in, and then that helps you be immune to the disease. So a little bit of negativity maybe protects you from a lot of negativity.
Yeah. You have to know what it looks like, right?
Yeah. Negativity glass half full. Yeah.
But I also think that there is a stigma with optimism that it means it's naive. And it's just like, no, I'm very acutely aware of how bad things are, but I'm choosing to focus on things that are good because in a time when everything is bad, anybody who has that is able to still achieve it.
Oh yeah. Did you ever watch Angel, from the Buffy the Vampire Slayer universe? Angel the vampire. Angel was a vampire on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Why didn't she slay him? It's complicated. But the show...
it was sexual tension. Two words.
Will they, won't they kill each other? Yeah. But the show Angel, a spinoff where he did die because he's a vampire, but now he's, living his best undead life, unliving his best unlife.
Yes.
And there's an episode in the final, I think it's the final episode of the second season where he's trying to help everyone, as a vampire detective does. And there's in that world, there's this big evil, the big evil is represented by a law firm, which is pretty on point.
Yep.
And he tries to, instead of helping individual people for a season, he's like, I'm just going to go after the big system. I'm going to try to go to the ultimate evil source and take that down. And hopefully that taking down that evil will trickle down. And then I won't have to save all the individual people because it'll be cool. But then he finds out that the ultimate, there is no one centralized evil location. And he's like, oh, he's demoralized. But then he has an epiphany that I think about a lot. He says to somebody, he's like, I realized that if nothing we do matters, then all that matters is what we do.
Yeah.
So, and that I was just reading, I have a friend, Gabe Dunn, who is an activist and was writing a Substack about activism and how it seems like, for one, I help feed one person and then the government kidnaps 45 people, you know, I put up one sign and change one mind and then the government tortures and blows things up and murders the thing about throwing a starfish into the ocean. There's an old, sort of, I
chestnut.
guess. Yeah, this whole chestnut. Exactly.
Chestnut.
You know what a chestnut. Yeah, you absolutely. You know what kind of thing it is, if not the exact thing. That's what I like about you. You just roll with it. So there's a story of a child is on the on the beach, and there's all these starfish just like have been beached, and they'll die because they're fish and they need the water.
Yeah,
maybe they're not technically fish, but, you know, don't at me.
Yeah.
But sea stars, I think, is the official name of them now, because they're not technically fish, but I grew up calling them starfish, and so look, hey, you can't tell me not to say you can tell me, but right now we'll just say starfish. And this kid is just like throwing them back in one at a time, but the ocean keeps delivering, you know, throwing them in. And an old person, you know, the old person who's supposed to be wise, but in the story ends up the buffoon, says to the child, hey, you're not making a difference. Like, look at these hundreds, thousands, however many starfish are. You're not making a difference. And the kid throws one in and says, I made a difference to that one. And I think that's all, you know, in a world where, I mean, I don't even co-sign. I understand the spirit of everything is bad, but literally speaking, that's not true. You're good. This friendship is good. This podcast is good. Like, love is
Make
good.
sure you like and subscribe.
Yes, liking and subscribing is good. Gratitude is good. If nothing matters, why are you listening?
Right.
It matters. We're happy that you're here. Thank you for being here. You are here. You are good. USA.
Yeah.
Went too far. Went too far.
far.
I do love chanting in that rhythm.
Yes.
In that rhythm.
Yes.
It feels so good. I'm not gonna, I gotta stop.
3 syllables.
Yeah.
You gotta have a 3 syllable.
3 syllables.
Yes.
Oh, syllables.
There you go.
Yeah.
Syllables.
Syllables. Silly bull. Okay.
Yeah.
I do some silly bull sometimes. Some silly bull.
Syllable. You do some in a special that you have coming up too.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that. Yeah, you are. Oh, well, that's so nice of you to bring up out of the blue. I don't know if I mentioned I'm in town from New York City doing. I'm trying to do all the podcasts. I mean, I'm starting with the ones that I like.
Yeah.
You know, like. But eventually, if we get through those, then who knows? I'll go into various lions' dens. But for now, happy to be here in this dog's den. There's a nice dog in this podcast studio. You can't see. They're in another room, not making noise.
Noodle,
they're
it's a
sweet.
husky.
Oh, Noodle.
Cutie,
What
yeah.
a perfect name. Noodle, the husky. So love a noodle. Love this noodle. Love eating noodles. Love that noodle. Love all noodles all the time. And so I do have a new special out, depending when you're listening to this. It could be probably
November 19th.
That is when it's out. Yes. And it is called Rini, and it's on YouTube. R-I-N-I. And it'll be a YouTube collaboration, a new thing that they allow between my YouTube page, Myq Kaplan, Myq Kaplan, and Blonde Medicine, who they produced the special. They're great. I've worked with them a ton. They're nice people.
I love Blonde Medicine. For a podcast that we talk about things we don't like, I absolutely love them as an outfit. Talk about something that, like, they care about artists, they care about the product that they make. Nothing but nice things to say.
And I'll tell you, in the spirit of this podcast, because I wanna be a good boy, I want to do a good job,
that,
right?
yep.
So I have put out albums with at least 5 different production companies, and Blonde Medicine is the one that I have, and some of them have been great to work with, and other ones are other ones.
Yes.
And I'll just give an example of the way that Blonde Medicine is good and goes above and beyond, in a way that some just go the regular acceptable distance, and others don't at all. Like Blonde Medicine, every month I get a direct deposit of how much money I made from them with the month that they're paying for, and they give you an accounting. They're like, here's how many people listened on Spotify, here's how many people listened on Amazon or Pandora. Transparency.
That's it.
This is one of my, I would say, if I had to pick a pet peeve, is like the lack of transparency that some companies, like every month is above and beyond. Like some do quarterly. Absolutely. Some do twice a year, which is also, some like do once, some never. Some literally, I'm like,
you just have to trust us.
Is it happening?
Yeah.
You still are getting, is anyone listening?
Yeah.
Is anyone watching? Are people buying things? Can you tell me? So yeah, absolutely. And I feel like this also goes along with my girlfriend and I, or Rini, the namesake of the special. My girlfriend's name is Rini. The special's name is Rini. And we created it together. That's why it's about our relationship. But Rini, during the pandemics, like sometime about 5 years ago, started learning about the autism spectrum, did a deep dive. It became kind of a special
Didn't we
interest.
all? There was kind of like when we all started learning.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That's when I started figuring out, man, way more people in stand-up.
And especially for women, for people who are socialized female growing up.
High functioning, yep.
And because it doesn't manifest the same way, I mean, like the way that like Rini was just like, sometimes one of her things, she likes things to be visually and tactily like organized in a night. I'm like, oh, look at that. Just a perfect, quiet, socialized girl, but she's like, that is because she doesn't like trains, so she's not autistic.
Yeah, of course not.
Because, it was all
she just
built
eats
around...
her M&Ms in a specific order by color.
Yeah.
That's something that I do.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, why wouldn't you? And so she started, deep diving to that and, self-diagnosing. And we're like, oh, yeah, probably. And obviously, like, there's definitely, I don't mean to, appropriate, because I know there are certainly like people out there who are in ways like facing greater challenges than the eating M&Ms in a specific order version of things. Obviously, that's not the only way it manifests.
Right.
But there's some who are, nonverbal from a very early age. And, in our societal structures, that is, has greater difficulties than if you can mask, if you can speak, if you can, you glean the rules of society. But it definitely gave her an opportunity. And I feel like one of the ways when we got together, she and I met in 2016. And the first time we met, we were, or it was actually the third time we met, but the first time I remember. And she remembered every time. But it was great. She's really smart and very observant, and I'm less observant. One time she dyed her hair from blonde to brown, and she told me the next day, and I was like, oh yeah, that does look different now. Yeah, absolutely. I'll look around our place, be like, cool painting, and she'll be like, I put it up 6 months ago. Great. But when we met, we hit it. The first long conversation we had, we really hit it off, and we're vibing, and it seemed like flirting, and just really enjoying each other's company. And so at one point, I put my hand, it seemed like it would be okay for me to like rest my hand on her arm, and then I said to her, I was like, hey, I don't know if you noticed that I've put my hand on your arm, and I hope that's okay. It seemed like it would be okay to do that, and if it's not, I'll take it away. But she was like, no, I did notice that, and I do also like that. It's good that you did that. And so like we have the same kind of verbal transparency, that because I feel like if you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. It doesn't manifest the same for everybody, but there's sometimes like, orbits of, like realms of similarity. Like some people might have, sensory overload sensitivities of, sounds or lights or lots of people or what have you. For us, it's about like, we really like to verbally, openly communicate. It's good for me as a comedian and good in a relationship with a person who also likes doing that. Where like, we have friends who are like, hey, so I'm trying to figure out what to do about this girl.
I'm in a relationship. I don't have to do that at all. We just discuss all of it. I know exactly how this person feels, and I believe what they say when they say they feel a specific way, because there's not anything else going on.
That's the way. I mean, it makes so much sense.
Part of the reason is so often narcissists, or especially to people with like on the ADHD spectrum, is because it's exciting and thrilling and all of that stuff. And those things can be intoxicating to somebody who's on the spectrum as well. And a lot of times that's how those people end up in a relationship that ends up really fucking unsafe for them, is because all of those things are, you know exactly what this person's, so it's easier to manipulate. It's easier to take advantage of this person if you understand that this is how they operate. But what's relieving is when somebody gets out of a relationship like that and you do communicate direct with like at the beginning of my relationship, as an example, is I would be like, this is not a trick question. I would have to deprogram, because also when you're high masking and stuff, you're just mimicking what other people are doing because you think that's how you're supposed to behave.
Right.
So for years, I was just mimicking what my parents did, which turns out was not great.
Yeah.
then you have to learn like, oh, you can do this in a different way.
Yeah.
And so when you have somebody that directly communicates with you that I didn't like how this made me feel, I'm not saying you never need to do it again, but let's just have a conversation as to why. And that in itself is like, I had a friend of mine who just got out of a marriage with a narcissist, and they are very much on the spectrum, high functioning, high masking, and and again, it goes back to that old Jerry Seinfeld, when you see another comedian in the room full of non-comedians, you're like, comedian. And like, once you realize this about yourself, you start seeing it in other people, and you're like, oh, you get it. I can just talk to you like a normal person. Like version
myself.
of yes. Yeah, I can be myself.
Yeah. Do you know Brene Brown? She has talked about, she's like a shame researcher, vulnerability and courage and such. And she has talked about this paradigm, this dichotomy of like, when you're a kid, you might want to fit in. And that's why you look at what other people are doing. And if that's not what you're like, but I can do like that. I'll fit in. I'll mask. I'll
contort.
do what you're doing. I'll conform.
Absolutely.
But then as an adult, hopefully, or as a child, eventually instead of fitting in, belonging is whatever size and shape and flavor you are, you find. You don't have to contort yourself. You're like, I'm good as I am. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't like try to learn and improve yourself and
or be able to compromise in a relationship. I think all of those things but you don't get to that point until you're okay with just being yourself first. I think.
It's like the old, the bumper sticker of like, you have to love yourself first before you can. I mean, you can love other people, but it's not going to be comfortable if you're not doing it as yourself, accepting yourself, loving yourself. There's a Zen master, a Buddhist teacher I like named Suzuki Roshi, Shunryu Suzuki. And he has one of my favorite quotes of his. I might be paraphrasing it slightly, but he says, "You are perfect exactly as you are, and you can use some improvement."
Yeah.
So like, it's always good to be growing and learning, always good to be like am I the asshole? It's good to interrogate, but it's also when you're in a relationship or in a friendship or in any situation
where you're thinking about another person at all.
And it's good to, at least certainly for a romantic connection or any close relationship, you want to be on each other's side. You want to have each other's best interest at heart. And you want to assume that other people have your best interest at heart when they've, when you're in the right situation, when you've earned, like if you're in a relationship, and like Rini was in a relationship before we were together that she told me about, like he would, like sometimes it would be like everything that she did was wrong. Like even just like if they park the car and he's like going to walk to the meter to pay it, and she waits by the car, and he's mad at her because she didn't walk with him to pay the meter.
Yeah.
And like, that's not a thing. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And I feel like if she walked with him to it, he'd be like, "What are you doing crowding me?" You know what I mean? Like, I'm just going to pay the
Someone
meter.
who's never satisfied. Yeah.
And she's such a, the other end of that.
The people
spectrum.
pleasing.
Yes. The people pleasing.
In order for someone to like me, I have to do everything I can to make them feel good.
And so she then internalizes, and she's, read a lot of self-help books. She's like learned from a lot of spiritual teachers. And there are good questions of like, what am I bringing to this? Like, what story am I telling that might be causing this suffering? And so she would like bend over backwards to be like, because sometimes if we think somebody's an asshole, like there's Elmore Leonard, who he wrote books, and in one of them, I think, became the TV show Justified. So I saw this on the show Justified. The main character says, if you meet an asshole in the morning, you met one asshole. If you meet assholes all day, you're the asshole.
Yeah.
Right. And so sometimes there's anomalous situations going on. It's not to say that nobody is an asshole, but certainly, think about, does the Dalai Lama call people an asshole? Did Jesus? Did Buddha? It's not to say that people aren't out there causing harm, but sometimes if I'm like, it's always good for me personally to be like, if that thing is I think something's bad, be like, is there something one of the things I thought about when you were like, prepare some things that you don't like. And I'm like, hypocrisy. And I'm like, am I a hypocrite sometimes though? Probably.
Absolutely.
I'm a hypocrite sometimes, and I don't like hypocrisy, and there's one of my hypocrisies, And so it's always good to, not constantly be questioning ourselves, but once in a while step back. And so that's what Rini was doing in this relationship, to the point where there's this guy, Julius Goat, I think his name is Andrew Moxon. His last name is Moxon,
Mhm.
and I follow him online. And he posted this thing once that I really like. That it's he says it's like a conversation. It's between the unreasonable man and the reasonable man. Could be person, but let's say man. Men are unreasonable,
Yes.
and so let's not do. I'll say person. So.
You heard it here first, folks.
Persons. Yeah. So the unreasonable person says, meet me in the middle, says the unreasonable person. So the reasonable person takes a step forward, and then the unreasonable person takes a step back and says, meet me in the middle. And then if that happens eternally, then you keep, acquiescing to the unreasonable person.
Right.
And, you
find yourself end up being unreasonable.
And
that's how they trick you. I mean, it's the same thing like where they're like, when we any kind of progress that we make, all of the yelling is for something further than we actually achieve, because that's what it takes for us to be able to make any sort of progress.
Oh yeah.
So it's the same kind of concept, but on an interpersonal level.
And so if you're in a relationship with a person like that who's like, you gotta meet me over here, and you're like, oh well, good. Of course, it's good to compromise, and like relationships take work. That's a thing that people say, but sometimes means not the thing. Like life takes work. It takes work to sustain, a human body and mind and heart and spirit. And then when you have two or more in a relationship, then yes, of course, like listening is part of the work, and, being there and offering people things. But sometimes people are like, relationships are a lot of work, like when your partner yells at you and you got to be like, well, yep, that's part of the work,
Yeah.
when how you're dealing with the mean person that you live with because they hate you, and you then are like, maybe I'm hateable, maybe I should. And so, it took her like some time after getting out of that relationship and like sharing with me, like if she was, upset, if she was crying at some point and she was, apologizing because she felt like growing up, she was never able to express, all of the wealth of emotions that she was experiencing. She was only supposed to be like a good, well-behaved, perfect person on the outside. But like when I'm like, I want to be here for you. I'm like, if you cry all the time, it's fine. Like, I don't think you're going to be crying constantly, but like when you're feeling crying, like, feel like I'm
crying.
I'm not mad at you. I'm not upset. Like
why would I be mad at you for it's a thing that all of us have felt there. It isn't unique to, it's all of our thing. I
mean, crying, like certainly like nothing is absolute, but definitely. I feel like certainly men and people in general could cry more, you know, like tears, like it's cathartic. It's like, I've done ayahuasca ceremonies where they refer to cleansing or purging, which sometimes happens in the form of like throwing up, or, sometimes for certain strains, diarrhea, like it can come out that end, it can come out this end, it could be sweat, you have like a Native American kind of, desert kind of like Vision Quest situation where you're in a hot place and the sweat comes out, but also like tears are like, it's all releasing. Sometimes, sometimes it's metaphysical, sometimes metaphorical, but sometimes it's like literal toxins, or at least, metaphorical, emotional toxins coming out. Like crying is cathartic. It feel like, but we grow up and, certainly there's many people are raised differently, but there's like, oh no, don't tell people you're just be cool,
Yeah.
Don't cry, be cool. Dumb bumper sticker.
Exactly. On the other side of that too is then you have the people that overshare, and do. So then I think a lot of times people are like, well, I don't want to be that person. And then there's an overcorrection that happens. I feel like more often than not, whenever people think that they shouldn't be doing something, there is an overcorrection of it.
Oh, yes, it is absolutely like there's a pendulum. And I mean, in Buddhism, they talk about the middle path, and it's not exactly this, but I like it as an analogy. Like, too much this direction, and
it's balance. That's kind of always what the ideology. Without having studied any one particular, that's one that's always resonated the most with me, and I think it was because of my. I had a humanities professor who we were talking about. I think it started from a conversation about Jonathan Livingston Seagull, and we talked about like abundance and being completely without, and the whole idea was in the middle was where the harmony from. That's where the nirvana is. That's where all of the, and for me it's always just like been, I feel like my behavior has been bad. I need to compensate for. I need to fix that behavior so that it is not. I'm no longer being like too good where you're harming yourself, or too bad where you're harming others. So there's like this whole thing in the middle that I've always just kind of strived to get to to maintain.
It's a constant, like, it's a process.
And that's the work part, is because you have to be acutely aware of what's going on and what's happening and stuff like that, so you're not inadvertently hurting people.
And yeah, I feel like humans, I'll speak for myself, but probably some other humans, like, we want there to be like an answer, like one thing,
but there isn't.
But it's every moment is like, what's happening now? Where are, like, because sometimes it's funny. I've been learning about Buddhism, so a lot of my examples come from this perspective. But like, you could look at, like, the Buddha gave like 84,000 different pieces of advice, and some of them are right for some situations, but not others, and vice versa, because it's basically like, here's one story. Like, he had a student who was like an instrumentalist, had like a stringed instrument. Like, today it'd be a guitar, might have been like a sitar or a lute type thing.
Sure.
Yeah. And the student was asking, like, so, I understand that there's these practices, these like kind of, these meditations, like we sit in a certain way and we say these specific things. But there's like, isn't there kind of like a rigidity to that? And isn't it also good to be like, you've said, like, to be loose and let go and be gentle with yourself and
malleable.
Like, so which one is it? And the Buddha's like, well, when you string your instrument, do you want the strings to be too tight or too loose? And he's like, well, I want them to be neither too tight nor too loose. And so if they're too tight, loosen them. If they're too loose, tighten them. And I feel like that for every, like, if you need to inhale, if you're like, wow, I got to breathe, then inhale. And if you're holding your breath, you're like, well, then exhale. Like, sometimes the exact opposite advice is true for, like, some people, need to, like, lighten up could be a good piece of advice for ourselves sometimes, but also buckle down could be a good piece of advice sometimes. And so there's no, which one is it? Well, where are you? Who are you? And what's happening? And,
context.
Yes.
Oh my God, for the love of everything holy, goddamn context.
Goddamn context. You're so fun. Can I tell you about one of my,
Yeah, please.
So when I think about the concept of pet peeves, and I'm sure if I've been on the show before, I think I was on the show before, I bet that I did this rigmarole as well, but it's sort of like my advanced penance for what I'm about to say.
Okay.
Because like, I like to focus, I don't only like to, if bad things, if harmful things are happening, I like to know about them. If I'm doing something, I want to know everything.
Sure.
I know that I don't.
I'm very much Johnny Five in that way. Input. I need input.
Absolutely. And so when I talk about pet peeves, I like, for you people who have pet peeves, love them. I like to say, like, this is like a kind of a life bit, but I like to say that I don't have pet peeves, because if I had a pet peeve, one of my pet peeves would be having pet peeves. Because I'm like, look, if it's obvious, I read a thing once with, it was like in Maxim magazine, like decades ago, like I think it was Lindsay Lohan or somebody was talking about, they're like, what one of my pet peeves is when people lie right to my face. And I was like, that's an interesting thing to call a pet peeve, because I feel like a pet peeve is like, this sound a little, like things that are a little lower stakes than like a liar, like it's a pet peeve for me when people are
fascism's
murdered.
kind of a pet peeve for me.
Exactly. You get it. And so for I'm like, I like to focus on, the big bad things are very important to talk about.
Right.
And I also like to celebrate the little good things. And sometimes a pet peeve is like, a little bad thing. And if it's happening, it's obviously, valid to talk about and own and acknowledge and process or what have you. But so I say that all to say that one of my first go-to pet peeve is almost always honking a car horn when it is not necessary to do that, which I think is like 90-something% of, I feel like I wish, I don't know if this wish should come true. There's going to be some evil genie that grants it. But like, for all the things that AI are doing, can AI like accurately assess when somebody's honking a horn because of danger and then like absolutely full on honk it? That's what we need that horn for. But all the other times when just somebody's like, I'm mad, you drove near me. Or here's my least favorite is like, a red light. There's a red light and cars are stopped. Then the light turns green and like the 8th car back lays on the horn when they don't know anything about, like, there's a baby crossing in front. There's like a bunch of ducklings, you know, somebody's in the crosswalk and we're like, hey, we're trying to save lives here. And so I feel like, you know, if I'm in that second car, I'm like, I like to give the first car like 1 second. Give them 1 second
to go, oh,
and,
shit.
Maybe
you're adjusting this.
And then maybe
this.
I'll flash the lights briefly after a second, and then like, oh, and then they'll usually go after 1 second. But after like 2 seconds, then I'll be like, beep, you know, just like a little beep. And
well, with everybody on their phone, I don't mind a little beep.
Oh yeah,
I don't mind.
Yeah, a little beep.
Yeah, a little beep, because you're checking your text, your email. Everybody's doing the thing they're not supposed to do. And as a person who I try to give people leeway to grace, give them a little grace. I get it. You got a kid at home, whatever the case is. You always I give you the benefit of the doubt. Then you get a little beep, and that's it.
Get a little beep. And if, let's say the second car isn't paying attention either, then after like 3 seconds, I feel like give that person a chance to give them the little beep. Then the third car could be like, beep, you know, just like, and then after 8 seconds, the 8th car I'll allow it. Yeah. If you, whatever number car you are, wait that many seconds. And if the cars haven't moved, then beep. There's truly
the
one
emotional honks are the ones that are very unnecessary. It's like, you should be telling this to your wife, or you should be telling this. It feels like something you should be having with someone else.
It should be hooked up to a system. Like, number one, I'd love it if those honks would just only play inside that person's car.
Yeah.
So they get the like, beep, yeah, wah, oh yeah, like, I mean, that's gonna hurt their ears, and like, you know, that's what I feel. Yeah, but yeah, then it should also you know, when it adds up, like in a video game, like you're playing a fighting game, and you get, you know, eventually enough energy for a combo move.
Yeah,
like,
super.
But yeah, once it adds up enough, then it like, you know, pings your therapist. You know, and like, hey,
time to schedule.
You hit a lot. You hit a lot of honks this week. So want to talk about, is anything underlying the honks? Yeah.
Do you think there could be reason that you're so honk heavy this week?
Oh yeah, my friend Gus is a therapist and tells me there's like this story. I think a story about a couple or a family that's out to breakfast and they're arguing about like pancakes, waffles. Yeah, we're gonna waffle, and there's like angrily talking about breakfast, and then the lesson is like, I don't think it's about the waffles. You know, like that's not the thing to cause us this anger.
Yeah,
there's probably more to that story that makes it. Just imagine that story's good. Yeah, you know what I like? Not having enough information. Yeah, perfect.
But yeah, I do think there is. I mean, that's been a thing, especially like being a female comedian, of having dudes with unprocessed emotions for the last like 30 years, because therapy is still new enough that a lot of people in my lifetime didn't have access to it.
Oh, sure.
So there's been plenty of times where I was like, I feel like you're angry about something else going on.
Oh man, have you seen the movie The Night Before?
I don't think so.
It's a great Christmas movie. I'm going to spoil just one scene that I think is so funny. It's Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Anthony Mackie and Seth Rogen. They play like buddies who are like adults now, and this is going to be they have a Christmas ritual the night before they go out, but one of them's having a baby and one of them has a different life thing happening, and they're like, this is the last one. So like the big night out, and at some point they get split up, you know, and it's not doing great, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character is like drinking and he's wandering the streets, and he runs into these two also drinking but sort of jovial like mall Santas, which, you know, two guys dressed as Santa, and he ends up getting into a fist fight with them, and he's, you know, because he's super upset and hasn't processed the loss that he's feeling with his, you know, the life changes happening, and he's fighting them, and they are, you know, they're two guys that are bigger than him, and and he's yelling at them, and one of them says to him, I feel like this is about something more than this.
Yeah.
And Joseph Gordon-Levitt said, no, this is about this and only this.
Denial.
Yeah.
Also a big signifier that this is about something else.
Not for me.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. For everyone else, I get it. Like I wrote a joke once about, do you remember the movie The Social Dilemma? About, all the people who work at the big social media companies are like, well, I don't let my kids use it because we're making
terrible.
it.
Yeah.
It's like cigarettes. It's like putting cigarettes into your eyes, however many, we'll tell you how many hours a day, lots of screen time. And so I basically, this is a joke, but I think it's true. I think that movie is basically about how damaging social media is for every human being in the world except for me. Like, I'm fine. I can use it. I can handle my soch, you know? But yeah, we all.
I know when I've had enough. Classic.
Yes. There's some kind of fallacy that it's like my friend just mentioned it yesterday, but it's the thing of like if you're in traffic and you're like, everyone's an asshole, but I have reasons, you're like, me, I'm the except, like, I know why I'm cutting people off because I have to get somewhere important right now, but everyone else is like a non-player character in my life and they don't have
then now we're also that's also in the realm of narcissism where everyone is living in their own, their lead character syndrome.
Yes. And Rini is like, she's wonderful because like whenever if we're in traffic and somebody like zooms down like the shoulder,
I'm always like, they gotta go. Gotta go.
She's
That's
like,
why they did that.
Their wife's having a baby.
Yeah.
They must. It's so important. And it's like, oh, that's so sweet. So it's because we don't know, like, we know almost nothing, certainly about what's going on inside the minds of anybody else. And so it's really nice. It's everything, every thought we have about someone else is at least partially something about ourselves. So that's why it's like, I mean, and here's another joke I tell, but and this will demonstrate the truth of what I think and the silliness of what I think, because projection, sometimes like on the thing of like, if I think somebody's an asshole, if I'm like, that person's an asshole, I'll be like, am I an asshole? Because it's kind of an asshole thing to call somebody an asshole, like even if they are being an asshole.
Or are you recognizing behavior?
Exactly. I mean, asshole, recognize asshole. You know what I mean?
A game recognizes game.
And so the game is assholery, and there's an asshole over there, so there's an asshole over here. Because if you see something outside of yourself, like we see the world not as it is, but as we are. So to recognize it, there must be something present in ourselves. And so the joke is, I was at an airport and I saw a pilot, and I was like, wait, am I the pilot? I started flying the plane like an asshole. So obviously there are, some measure of, relatively speaking, objective reality outside of ourselves that, like, if it's raining, like, we didn't make it rain unless we, threw those dollars, if it's raining, it can make us feel upset, or it can make us feel grateful that the crops are getting
or
water.
Cozy. It's nice little rain.
I had plans. And like, I feel like ultimately, I mean, I don't mean to just like sum up, the core of your show in one nugget, but like, again, in a Buddhist paradigm, it's like the three main things of Buddhism, like the three of the main things are like impermanence, emptiness, and suffering. And so like suffering, like the first noble truth in Buddhism, there's four. It's just the first one is that there is suffering, like life, and the suffering can come in many forms. Obviously it can be physical pain, but have you heard the second arrow, the thing about the second arrow? I'll share for any who don't know. I'll let people know.
I don't think
second
I
arrow.
want you
Good night,
to.
everybody. Yeah, that's all. Time's up.
Do your own research.
So the idea is kind of, this is a paraphrase, but you know how sometimes people say like pain is mandatory, suffering is optional. Like, and so if it's raining, that could be a pain, but the suffering, if you're like, oh, my plans, I had other plans, like that's the second arrow. Like, we get shot with one, like, we can't help getting shot with life's first arrows, be it like sickness or death.
Yeah, but the second one is usually self-inflicted.
Our reaction, exactly. And they say the second arrow is usually often more painful and more optional. Like, there's this story of this Buddhist monk who pulled out his own tooth with a wrench because it was in pain. He had a sore tooth, and somebody's like, did that hurt? And he's like, well, when I was walking to the shed to get the wrench, that didn't hurt. When I grabbed the wrench, that didn't hurt. When I put the wrench to my tooth, that didn't hurt. When I yanked it, it hurt a little. Yeah. And then after, it didn't hurt anymore.
The suffering ended.
The fear of it is often worse than the thing itself. The fear of it, or the wallowing or remembering of it. Man, remember that time when I was in pain? That now I'm in pain again. I'm suffering again. for that reason. So yeah, so there's always that's why I can come on the show, because there's always one arrow. I can talk about one arrow.
Yeah, sure.
Trying not to shoot myself with all the other arrows, But that's the thing, like, because I feel like not the same way as Rini exactly, but I grew up not a people pleaser, but like thinking that I was the main character, because we all are the main character of our own life, as well as, supporting characters in the lives of others.
Yeah.
And
the difference is when you only think that your story is worth being taken care of. I feel like that's when it starts. When everyone becomes faceless and they're characters, they're not people. When you stop treating them like, how would you want to be the character in someone else's story without the consideration of others? I feel like that's when you start getting into real bad behavior.
Oh yeah, there's a famous thing from like the Talmud, this book of Jewish wisdom, or this collection of Jewish wisdom, where a rabbi said it's something like, if I am not for me, then who will be for me? But if I am only for me, then who am I?
Yeah.
Right? It's we're all in this together. We're all humans. We're all on this earth, for the most part. Some of us aren't humans, but we're all people. In Buddhism, they call dogs people, cats people, horses, all animals, bugs are people. And we're all connected. There's in this interconnected web. And so it's false. Like there's this teacher, this Buddhist woman, maybe she isn't Buddhist, but she teaches about Buddhism and spirituality, named Joan Tollefson. And I've heard this analogy from her first and other places, that like we're all, an interconnected ocean, right? Like humanity, the world, it's an ocean. We're all individual like waves in the ocean, like because a wave is still part of the ocean. It's connected to the ocean. It's literally not separate from the ocean. But for a minute, it seems like, oh, I'm a wave. Like every individual human being is a wave. You're a wave. I'm a wave. And she says, Hitler is a wave and Buddha is a wave. Everyone is a wave. And the main difference, or one qualifying distinction between Buddha and Hitler, is that Buddha is aware that he is a wave in the ocean connected to the rest of the ocean and all the other waves, and Hitler not aware. And that lack of awareness, which is present in various people to varying degrees, and ourselves at times, if we're hungry or tired or thirsty or under,
we forget,
stressed
we seem
out,
to forget
like,
that we're a wave.
I need me, like feed me, like even Ram Dass, great spiritual teacher, has this fun thing where he's like, sometimes you're in this like meditative flow state, and that but when you come down from it, you're like, we're all one, but that's my stereo. And like these things are all true, and like we live, whether we, whatever we believe, like these things, like the reality of what is, and we can either, go along with it and, try to improve our lot and the lot of others. But if you're like, no, there's this woman, Byron Katie, the spiritual teacher, she wouldn't call herself that, but she wrote a book called Loving What Is, and she says when you argue with reality, you lose, but only 100% of the time. And like, so it's important to, start from where we are and know who we are, and we are, relational beings as well. And I'm like, oh, I've been talking a lot. So what do you think about that? Enough about me. What do you? But there's just all these, like, it's. I think that's the thing. So the overall ultimate difficulty, the thing that causes most of the suffering, is the impermanence. I think Thich Nhat Hanh said this, that it's not the impermanence that causes the suffering. It's that things are impermanent, but we wish they weren't. That we wish things weren't, like we wish, oh, this is how it is. I get how it is. Like kind of talking about like always like
then that would
measuring.
Be the black and white thing. Yeah, because then there would never be any exceptions. But unfortunately with fluidity, there is always gray, and and that's kind of where that line between the two, that's always where all the cool shit happens.
And so it's always so valuable to be, like right now, like, I woke up this morning, I have a flight home tomorrow night, but also at the time of this recording, the government shutdown is still on, and it was just announced that they might be like lessening the number of, TSA workers, or maybe it's traffic controllers or whatever it is, because there's federally paid people who aren't getting paid, and because the shutdown is continuing, they might have to lessen the number of flights. And so I got a thing that's like, do you want to switch your flight? Your flight might be affected. And I called and I'm like, is my flight affected? And they're like, we don't know, it might be. And I was like, so if I switch to another flight, what about that? I'm like, that one might be affected. I'm like, so I don't, so yeah, I'm on one. And it's like, it exists for now, but it's in the future and who knows. And like, you know, I quote unquote have to get home the next day because I have a show that night that if I can't do that show, then I'll be, you know, in trouble. You know, it'll be I won't make that money. Also, I won't be able to drive the other comedians to the show like I'm planning to. And then I'll have to find a replacement and people might be unhappy. And like all these things are, you know, spiraling in my head. I'm like, well, I just don't know. I don't love not knowing, but I'm like, I do not know. And so I'm like, well, then I'm going to try to love not knowing, try to at least embrace and accept that I can't control. I'm not in control of the air traffic. I mean, like maybe I should go become an air traffic controller. Then I would be in control of the air traffic, which is the thing that I'm concerned with right now. But I don't have enough time between today and tomorrow to become an air traffic controller to make it so that, because then it'd be like Pagliacci the clown, where I'm like, oh wow, I became the air traffic controller, so I can help my plane go, but then I can't be on the plane. I can only help the gift of the Magi.
Oh no.
So that's another the idea of how things are compared to how we wish they were. Like that's where so much suffering arises. We're like, it should be this. Like, you know, when the pandemic hit, I was like, but I have shows.
That makes it worse with the fucking being neurodivergent, because there's that in the inherent fairness that you wish existed, and so much fucking suffering goes with it. We're well, no, that's not right, because that's not fair.
Yeah, that shouldn't be.
Yeah,
but it is.
But it is.
I don't want to, and then I mean, of course, it makes perfect sense to be like, you know, upset about upsetting things, to be angry at anger-inducing things, but then like, what can we do? You know, like that's what can we do for the victims of the suffering? Can we do anything? What can we do for ourselves? You know, can you make yourself a sandwich or somebody else a sandwich? Is like, can you who can you help and how? It can't be all of the starfish, like, and that's it. We want it to be. We want to be like, I just want to make, hey, I figured out a starfish catapult, and it can help everybody, and all we need is just people to agree. You know, can you just agree that we want to help everybody?
Look, that's impossible. Well,
oh no, but we all would want to help everybody. If, like, let's say you could be fine, you could be fine, and everyone else could be okay also. Because here's the thing I was thinking about earlier with respect to, you know, abundance compared to scarcity. Like, some people don't have enough food. Some people have literally too much food. Some people food gets thrown away. Food gets thrown away from grocery stores and
that's
restaurants.
That's been my biggest thing with it, specifically in New York. Specifically, like the restaurant waste in New York could feed the rest of the country with a city that big. And so, like, I mean, this data is probably like pre-pandemic, so it's dated. But still, the fact that it's illegal is wild. And now, of course, now I'm not going to remember what country, but they just made it legal in another country where if you have excess food, you can give it to people.
You know, when I was in college,
because I never understood that.
Well, so I understand what they say, because when I was in college, I was at Brandeis University, and I worked for dining services. And my whole first year there, after dinner, like, if hot food was left over, they would donate it to a food kitchen or like a homeless shelter or something. And that was great. And then the next year, a gigantic company came in and took over the food service process. And then they stopped doing that. And they said it was a legal liability thing, that if they gave food to people and somebody got sick, then they could sue. So it's just a fear of
if they don't have enough money for the fucking food, they're not going to have enough money for litigation.
It doesn't. I mean, and also they're probably thinking, they're like, okay, but obviously there could be like a lawyer who would do it pro bono and get all of the people, because we're definitely, if we're allowed to do this, we're giving them bad food, we're giving them garbage, we're giving them poison. We're like, no, don't give them poison. Like, but yeah, I think the litigious nature of our society is such that is the motivation for them to be like, if you don't give anyone anything, then they can't complain about you giving them a bad thing, like, because they'll be dead and didn't eat any food. Yeah. But even like on an individual basis, like, I will sometimes like eating is like an issue for me. Like, I'm like, I don't feel like I have an eating disorder specifically, but I'm like, if it's a spectrum, like there was a time in college where I was like exercising more than not more than I needed to, but like if I ate a dessert, I'd be like, gotta run longer tomorrow. And at a certain point, my roommates were like, your neck is really thin. And I was like, oh, I'll start eating more cheesecake then.
Mhm.
And so like, again, don't mean to like, appropriate into the world of like people who are really suffering greatly. I have not been diagnosed, but I'm thinking I have a fraught relationship with food sometimes, and I'm doing my best to address it. I guess what I'm saying is I'm Jewish. And but sincerely, like sometimes I'll be like, eating something that tastes good, and I'll be like, I want to keep eating more of it because it tastes good. And then I'll keep eating more of it, even though I know like I'm getting full, and probably if I stopped, that'd be a good amount. But I'm like, well, let me eat more. Like these blueberries are delicious. I'm gonna keep eating. Like that'll be later me's problem. I'm like, now me gets to enjoy more and more tasty blueberry. And I feel like that's the way that sort of writ large, like there are people who have, more than enough food, more than enough money, more than enough everything, like can't enjoy, like your brain can't be happier. Your brain can't, and you're probably not even at the maximum, and it's not more doesn't make you happy.
Yeah.
But there's people that are like, well, I gotta hold on to it. I can't let it go. I have so much. Like there's this
the idea where if you like the blueberries so much, if you shared them with someone else, then maybe you wouldn't have this in the future.
Oh yeah, and there's this idea that like some people are like, I can't be happy unless other people are unhappy, that I'm winning, that I can't enjoy this.
It's
I enjoy
the
it more.
same type of people that only think there's a certain amount of rights, and if people have rights, that somehow they lose their rights in some way.
Oh yeah, but it's so weird because even just on the most basic level, if like somebody has like all the apples that grow in an apple orchard, and somebody has all the oranges, like you got unlimited apples, you got unlimited oranges, each of you only has like unlimited one thing. But then if you're like, oh, let's trade, like I'll give you some apples, you give me some oranges. Now everybody has apples and oranges. And like that, I feel like that's like, I'm not an economist, but I feel like that's like the way society ought be. Like we all like, not everyone can do everything. Not everyone is a plumber. Not everyone's a carpenter. Not everyone is a musician.
But are all the things valuable? I feel like yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like I'm very grateful that I live in a home with plumbing and that it was built, that can withstand the weather. And then I know that there are people who appreciate the comedy that I do. I'm sure you've gotten messages from people about the podcast and about your comedy that are like, you're giving voice to something that makes people feel seen and heard and understood, or even just like I get messages from people that are like, my friend was going through a really hard time. I shared some of your comedy with him, and he just felt better, or like a guy was driving across country and is like, my life was changing. I didn't know it was going to go on, but I just listened to, comedy albums, and I listened to your comedy, and it just, it helps. So like everyone is hopefully doing, figuring out who they are and how they can, show up in the world to be themselves authentically and help. And it does. Yeah. So yeah.
I think part of it that makes it hard right now is things that we once thought did help, you find out later doesn't help. Like for instance, like food banks and stuff like that like charity was like a good example. For the longest time, I just thought charity meant good, that there was just an entity that was like allocating things and then distributing them. And then of course, the longer you're alive, you're like, oh no, this is just a way for rich people to launder money essentially, and to pay themselves back for actually not doing anything by having another company that seemingly does good, but ultimately doesn't do anything. So then I think a lot of times people will get stifled because they're like, well, now I don't know. There's no one I can trust to do good except me. And I know I am a drop in a bucket of, I have one starfish, so it feels difficult. So we're like to the point where I'm just like, I mean, what happened that I did over the pandemic is I was like, at the time I was living in a place that wasn't charging me rent. And I was doing these like shows online. So that then the money, whatever money I would get, anytime I would see somebody that was like, I need money, I would just send them money.
Yeah.
And do it like that, just only because I can't trust the fucking March of Dimes. I can't trust various amounts of companies to do a thing. And maybe it's because they end up being companies.
And yeah, because
even if they are nonprofit.
Yeah, there's like a separation between person and like when when person joins entity and you're like, it's now there's separation. I will say, and like, I'm not an expert and I'm not,
neither am I, but this isn't an expert podcast.
I will share that an organization that I like, that I do think does good work, or certainly has the impetus, has the motivation, and they basically assess how much money charities get versus how much they do the thing that they're saying with that money, like what percentage that comes in goes to their operating costs versus what goes to helping prevent malaria.
Yeah.
Right. And so the organization is called GiveWell. So it's givewell.org. And they're basically just like, you can look at their recommendations.
Most of it, it's because it's transparency. It's that's usually when this shit doesn't happen.
Yes.
Because you're seeing where everything is done. People are just going, we got this much money in and I distributed it out this way and this much to maintain, to keep the thing going. People can understand it then, and then you can know where it's going.
Yeah.
And I think that's the part that's comforting.
Absolutely. Like they're like $4 like helps get a malaria net. And so you give as much money, and that this much money saves this many people. And it's really, and I obviously, like, there are other things to do as well, like, being active in your community, like helping literally, like, I try to carry like single dollars all the time, so that if somebody on the street is like, can I have $1? Like, yes, I have dollars. And maybe that's not like the most efficient way if I like used all the dollars that I gave to individuals on the street and I was like, here, good organization. Like, you start, because, if you're like, build a school, right? Should I just give everybody one pencil, or, centralize the money and be like, hey, we can now use this to create hopefully a positive institution to help. And because everything's like Soylent Green, it's all made of people.
Yeah.
Everything is made of people, and people are flawed, and like everyone, everyone is doing their best, and everyone has different capacities to do their best. And there's definitely people out there who are like, taking advantage and trying and just, padding their own pockets. But there are also like, it is work to try and figure out, who are the people that you trust, who are the organizations that you trust. And like, that might always be changing as well. Like, I mean, recycling is another thing I feel like that we're like, you got to recycle. And then somebody, you find out like, well, actually, unless it's like perfectly clean, like, and then people, it's not even this kind, or that it's supposed to be this, but then sometimes it just ends up in the ocean or in a dump. And we're like, or are we going to shoot it into space? Like what?
Yeah.
But yeah, there are problems. I agree.
Yeah.
Let me just say that everything isn't exact. I mean, everything isn't perfect, and also it's the only everything that is. So it is. Like, we're working on it. We're working on it, everyone.
Working on it.
We're working on the everything, and hopefully you're working on it too.
But the pet peeve thing for me is more play than anything.
Totally.
Because a lot of times that's what's been real fun and revealing is when people complain about something, a lot of times it is about something else. A lot of times it is about, oh, this is because you were never listened to as a child. So now this is manifested in even the tiniest ways as an adult. Like, for me, that's always fun. Or it's also funny to get mad about small things. As a good way of release to go ahead.
Oh, no, please.
As a good way to get it out, to get the venom out, sort of like a release valve,
exactly.
so to speak.
I just had this, mini epiphany. I mean, I've thought about this before, but so Rini and I like complement each other in ways like, I was socialized a boy, I was listened to and encouraged to speak. So like I've learned in adulthood, like, oh, listening is an important skill to have as well, because I've had the skill of talking, whereas for her, she grew up like the flip side of that, and she's had to learn to like advocate for herself more and be like, this is important and this is true and this is my experience. And she has a lot of stuffed animals who are family members to us, and one of them is a bear named Fudge, and he's a little brown bear, and he has this like little askew mouth, like his mouth like it just isn't sewed on exactly. It's like, and it's adorable, and it makes him look like he's like humph, like humph. And so when she got him a couple of years ago, he joined our family, and she started like giving voice to him, and he would say things like, "Oh, brother," or like if somebody shared some information, be like, "Well, that's news to me," and like. And
See, I love that guy.
He's the best guy. And he is, obviously, we know that Rini herself is, vocalized. Like, she's the one making the sounds that are Fudge's voice. And so they're coming from inside her. It's an aspect of herself that was not encouraged, that was not fostered, that was not celebrated or inspired as a child. She was never allowed to say, "Oh,
This is
brother."
bullshit.
She was never allowed. And so we learned, I have a friend who's a therapist who's like, that's puppet therapy. That's a thing that because she's like, oh yeah, I could never say, "Oh, brother," but Fudge can say, "Oh, brother." And then you are the combination of the 5 people you spend the most. So the more time she spends, with Fudge, inhabiting Fudge's voice, she is able to do, this, fulfill the spirit of this podcast and be like, hey, I'm not going to take it anymore.
Yeah,
this is not
I'm
right.
sick of this shit.
That's not cool. Yeah, no, thank you. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. You go, Fudge. Yeah, 100%. Sometimes Fudge won't even be in the car and Rini will just say something herself. She'll be like, driving up a big hill in Los Angeles. She'll be like, what is this, San Francisco? I'm like, Fudge? Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, that was you, Rini. That was you. I thought Fudge snuck in as a castaway, a stowaway. That's right.
Stowaway, yeah.
Stowaway.
All right, let's do a palate cleanser before we go. Give me something really good. Something that you absolutely adore. Like, do you have a favorite food since you have a lot of issues with food? Is there something that always wins?
Oh yeah, part of the issue is I have a lot of favorite foods. I love berries, blue wraps, straw. I love pineapple, love mango, love for other non-fruit foods.
Gun to your head though, if you had to pick the one, one that wins.
That's such a difficult. If I could only eat one food forever,
yeah.
It's specifically the Amy's company, them, the vegetarian food.
Yeah.
Amy's has a vegan, gluten-free lasagna that I eat. And I know some people are like vegan, gluten-free lasagna. That's 2 out of 3 things that makes lasagna.
Yeah.
I enjoy, and this is I don't mean to just do a bit, but it's true. I just enjoy, squeezing marinara sauce out of a ricey sponge into my mouth. No, it's delicious. I love it so much. I love this vegan, gluten-free lasagna so much that every time I eat it, I'll say like, this is really good. Like, even though I know it's the same and like lasagna has become code in our family in like with Rini and me and anyone that I share with. And now you, and you and Oprah, and look under your seat. You get a lasagna and you get a lasagna. They're not there. That would be bad. That would be a waste of food. We got to get that to the people who need it.
We got to get the people who need it.
But we refer to anything that is like always good. Like Rini had a good friend that whenever she get off the phone with this friend, be like, how was the call? She's like, it was lasagna. Like, our relationship is lasagna. Like, anything, like she has certain foods that she eats every day. She's like, these are her lasagna.
Comforts, yeah.
So yeah, that's just a pure joy. Like, I don't eat it every day, but
of course not.
But
that's how good it is you wouldn't want to eat it every day. You have to put some time in between it because that's how good it is. It deserves time in between.
Multiple times a week for sure. But anywhere, like, could be 3. Yeah, I try to leave a day in between each one to miss the lasagna. You know, they say if you love your lasagna, you set it free. And then if your desire for it comes back the next day, it was meant to be. And it's meant to be with
every
me
goddamn time.
And Amy's lasagna. So yeah, love that lasagna. I mean, love a podcast conversation. Love you. Love friendship. Love. Yeah.
Is there a teacher that you loved out of all of them? Best one? Favorite one?
Sure. Of like a teacher that I had like in school, or like of books that I've read, that sort of thing.
No, in real life.
In real life.
You had.
Yeah.
By chance.
Yeah. I mean, I have many, but the one that springs to mind immediately when I was in grad school, my advisor, who taught me a few different classes and is now, it's so cool that I'm an adult and she's
an adult.
She's an adult. And so she still lives in the Boston area and like has come to like the last 2 times I went to Boston, she came to my shows. And her name is Kathy O'Connor. She was the head of the linguistics department, or the head of some department at Boston University when I was there. She was my thesis advisor. She taught me. Here's one favorite moment from one of our classes, which kind of goes along with some of the things we've been talking about. She asked a question to me and I didn't know the answer. So I started like, bullshitting.
Yeah.
I started being like, oh, I got to answer.
You gotta have an answer.
Here's the answer to your question.
Yeah.
And she said, she like thought about it for a moment and she said, I don't entirely understand what you're saying. Can you like explain it in a different way? I was like, you got me. I didn't mean
I don't know.
anything.
I made it all up.
I made it up. And she was like, it's like sincerely, she's like, I just wanted to make sure, because she's like, I didn't understand, but that doesn't mean that it didn't make sense. Maybe there could have been a way. And I thought that was so beautiful, because she wasn't just like, I'm the authority and that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, you're wrong.
She was like looking within herself
it's
and
a
being
curiosity, though. That's
Yeah.
that's how you get that's how you get the information that you're really looking for, is by being curious.
And she was wise enough to say, like, she's like, I don't know what you're saying, as opposed to like, I know everything. And, you know, she's like, yeah, can you help? Yeah, curiosity is, they say it killed the cat, but I feel like it feeds the soul.
Not only that, but I feel like that cat lived a pretty fucking cool life, because I imagine the curiosity is made it way more fruitful.
I think it's actually probably anti-curiosity propaganda. I don't even think that cat.
agree.
Like that's how they get you. They're like, don't be curious, or the cat will get. Who killed that cat?
Who?
Stop killing those cats.
Yeah.
I'm curious as to who's killing the cats.
Who's killing the cats?
And you can't silence us all. If we all express curiosity, we're gonna get to the bottom of this cat murder.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. You're a
Thank
delight
you.
as always.
The same.
Make sure you guys check out Rini. It comes out November 19th.
Yes.
On the YouTubes. Very easy to find. And is there anything else you want to plug?
I mean, I have a bunch of other albums and specials, and I do live shows, and I have a Substack.
MyqKaplan.com.
Yeah, MyqKaplan.com. Search for Myq Kaplan.
MYQ, sorry.
Yeah, you got it. My MYQ Kaplan, all the places, and wherever you want to find me, there I am.
Yeah. And thank you guys so much for listening. I adore you. Thank you guys for supporting, liking and subscribing. Share patreon.com/NoSirPod if you want to throw cash at the podcast to keep it going. Appreciate you guys very much. Enjoy. Bye.
No, sir, I don't like it.